Maya Rodriguez pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders as the morning rain soaked through the worn fabric. The imposing iron gates of the Blackwood estate stretched up toward the gray sky, making her feel even smaller than she already did. She had been standing there for almost 10 minutes, trying to work up the courage to press the little silver button on the intercom. Her stomach twisted with hunger, a feeling she had gotten used to over the past 3 days. The last real meal she'd eaten was a half-stale sandwich she'd bought with her last $5. Now she was down to $3.47, and even that felt like a fortune she couldn't afford to spend. Maya looked down at her reflection in a puddle near her feet. Her dark hair was damp and messy, her face pale from exhaustion. She hardly recognized herself anymore. Just 2 years ago, she had been walking across a college stage in a cap and gown, holding a marketing degree that was supposed to change her life. Her family had been so proud. Her little brother Danny had cheered the loudest from the audience. Now Danny was in the hospital again, and their mother was working double shifts just to keep up with the medical bills. Maya had tried everything. She'd applied to hundreds of jobs, taken on freelance work that barely paid anything, and even sold most of her belongings. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. The rain was getting heavier, and Maya knew she couldn't stand out here much longer. A security camera mounted on the gate post seemed to be watching her, making her feel like she was already doing something wrong. She took a deep breath and tried to remember what her college counselor used to say about confidence. Stand tall, speak clearly, and remember your worth. But what was her worth now? She was about to beg strangers for food. Maya pressed the intercom button before she could talk herself out of it. The sound was sharp and electronic, cutting through the quiet morning air. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a crackling voice came through the speaker. "Can I help you?" The voice belonged to an older man, probably the security guard. He sounded tired but not unfriendly. Maya cleared her throat and tried to make her voice sound steady. "Hi, I'm really sorry to bother you this early. My name is Maya Rodriguez, and I have kind of an unusual request." She paused, feeling her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "I'm not asking for money or anything like that. I was just wondering if maybe someone here might need some cleaning done. I'm a hard worker, and I'd be happy to do it in exchange for just a meal. I know it sounds strange, but I'm in a really tough spot right now." There was silence on the other end of the intercom. Maya's heart pounded as she waited. She could almost hear the security guard thinking, probably deciding whether she was crazy or just desperate. "Maybe both. You want to work for food?" the voice finally asked. "Yes, sir. I'm not looking for charity. I just need work, and I'm willing to do whatever needs doing. I can clean, organize, do yard work if the rain stops. I'm good with my hands, and I pay attention to details." Another pause. Maya closed her eyes and listened to the rain hitting the metal gate. She was preparing to walk away when the voice came back. "What kind of experience do you have?" "I worked my way through college doing housekeeping for a hotel chain. Before that, I helped my mom clean offices downtown. I know how to handle expensive things carefully, and I always finish what I start." Maya wasn't lying. She had worked those jobs, and she had been good at them. Her managers always said she was reliable and thorough. But those jobs were in the past now, from a time when work was just a way to pay for school, not a desperate search for survival. "Hold on a minute," the guard said. The intercom went quiet again. Maya stood there getting wetter by the minute, watching expensive cars drive by on the street behind her. Each one probably cost more than her family had made in the past 2 years. She wondered what it would be like to live in a world where money wasn't a constant worry, where you could buy groceries without checking your bank account first. The gate suddenly buzzed, and Maya jumped. She heard a clicking sound as the lock released. "Come up to the side entrance," the voice said. "Mrs. Patterson will talk to you." Maya couldn't believe it. Someone was actually going to listen to her. She pushed through the heavy gate and started walking up the long driveway, trying not to stare at everything around her. The mansion was even more impressive up close. It looked like something from a movie, with tall windows, stone columns, and perfectly trimmed hedges lining the path. The gardens were the kind that required a team of people to maintain, with flowers Maya had only seen in magazines. Everything was green and lush despite the rain, like money could even make plants grow better. She followed a smaller path that curved around to the side of the house, where a simple wooden door was marked with a small sign that said "Service Entrance." Maya hesitated for a moment. 6 months ago, she would have gone to the front door without thinking twice. Now she was grateful just to be let onto the property. Before she could knock, the door opened. A woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun smiled at her kindly. She was wearing a simple blue dress and an apron, and her eyes were warm despite the early hour. "You must be Maya," the woman said. "I'm Helen Patterson. I manage the household here. Tom on security told me you're looking for work." "Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for agreeing to see me. I know it's early and I know my request is unusual." Helen looked Maya up and down, but not in a judging way. More like she was trying to understand her story. "Why don't you come inside where it's dry? We can talk properly." Maya followed her into a warm kitchen that smelled like coffee and fresh bread. It was bigger than her family's entire apartment, with granite countertops and appliances that looked like they belonged in a restaurant. Helen poured 2 cups of coffee and gestured for Maya to sit at a small table near the window. "So tell me," Helen said, settling into the chair across from her, "what brings a young woman like you to my door asking to work for food? And please be honest with me. I've been doing this job for 20 years and I can usually tell when someone isn't telling the truth." Maya wrapped her hands around the warm coffee mug and took a sip. It was the best coffee she'd tasted in months. Then she started talking, and once she began, the words just kept coming. She told Helen about her brother's illness, about losing her job when the company downsized, about her mother working herself into exhaustion. She explained how she'd tried everything else before coming here. Helen listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally and refilling Maya's coffee cup when it got empty. When Maya finished her story, they sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Well," Helen finally said, "it sounds like you've had a rough time of it, and I appreciate your honesty." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain. "The truth is, we could use some extra help around here. Mr. Blackwood has been working from home more often lately, which means more cleaning, more meals to prepare. My usual cleaning girl called in sick yesterday." Maya's heart leaped. "So you might have something for me to do?" "I think we can work something out," Helen said with a smile. "But first, let's get you some breakfast. You look like you haven't eaten in days." Helen Patterson was as good as her word. Within minutes, Maya found herself sitting at the kitchen table with a plate of scrambled eggs, fresh toast, and crispy bacon in front of her. The smell alone was enough to make her eyes water with gratitude. She tried to eat slowly to maintain some dignity, but her body had other ideas. She hadn't realized how desperately hungry she was until the first bite hit her tongue. "Easy there," Helen said gently, setting down a glass of orange juice. "The food isn't going anywhere." Maya blushed and forced herself to slow down. "I'm sorry. It's just been a while since I've had a real meal. No need to apologize. I've seen enough people in tough situations to understand." Helen sat down across from her with her own cup of coffee. "While you eat, let me explain what we might have you do today. Mr. Blackwood has a big meeting this afternoon, and the main house could use a thorough cleaning. The guest rooms on the second floor haven't been touched in weeks, and his office definitely needs attention." "Mr. Blackwood?" Maya asked between bites. "The owner of the house." "Adrian Blackwood. He runs some kind of technology company downtown. Very successful, but he works too much, if you ask me. He's usually at the office from sunrise to sunset, but lately he's been having more meetings here at home." Maya nodded, focusing on her breakfast. The name Adrian sounded familiar, but it was probably just a common name. She was more interested in the work Helen was describing. It sounded like exactly the kind of detailed cleaning she was good at. "The pay would be fair," Helen continued. "Probably enough to cover groceries for a week, plus lunch and dinner today. And if you do good work, there might be regular opportunities. We always need reliable help around here." Maya's heart jumped. Regular work would change everything. She could help her mother with the bills, maybe even get Danny the better medication his doctor had mentioned. "That sounds amazing, Mrs. Patterson. When can I start?" "Right now, if you're ready. Let me show you where the cleaning supplies are, and we'll start with the guest rooms." The next 2 hours passed quickly. Maya threw herself into the work with the kind of energy that only comes so pure. Rum hope mixed with desperation. She dusted every surface in the first guest room until it sparkled, vacuumed the carpet in perfect lines, and made the bed with hospital corners her mother had taught her years ago. Helen checked on her progress and nodded approvingly. "You weren't kidding about attention to detail," Helen said, running her finger along a windowsill Maya had just cleaned. "I can't remember the last time someone got this room this spotless." Maya was starting on the second guest room when she heard a car door slam outside. Helen glanced at her watch and frowned. "That's odd." Mr. Blackwood usually doesn't come home until evening. Through the second-floor window, Maya could see a sleek black car parked in the circular driveway. A man in an expensive-looking suit was walking toward the front door, talking on his phone. From this distance, she couldn't make out his features, but something about the way he moved seemed familiar. "I better go see what he needs," Helen said. "You keep working up here. He probably won't even know you're here." Maya went back to dusting the furniture, but part of her attention stayed on the sounds from downstairs. She could hear Helen's voice, then a deeper male voice responding. The man sounded frustrated about something, mentioning a client meeting that had been moved. His voice carried up through the house's high ceilings, and Maya found herself pausing to listen. There was something about that voice that made her skin prickle with recognition. It reminded her of someone, but she couldn't place who. Maya shook her head and went back to work. She was probably just being paranoid. Rich people all sounded the same sometimes. 20 minutes later, she heard footsteps on the main staircase. Helen's voice was getting closer. "The guest rooms are being cleaned today, so you might want to use your office instead." "That's fine," the male voice replied. "I need to grab some files from my desk anyway." Maya was bent over, organizing cleaning supplies in the second guest room when the voices stopped right outside the door. She froze, suddenly aware that she probably looked like a mess with her hair tied back in a messy ponytail and her clothes wrinkled from the morning rain. "Maya," Helen called, "could you come here for a moment? Mr. Blackwood would like to meet you." Maya's stomach dropped. She had hoped to stay invisible, to just do her work and collect her pay without having to interact with the owner of the house. Rich people made her nervous on a good day, and this definitely wasn't a good day. She smoothed down her hair and walked to the doorway. "Mr. Blackwood, this is Maya Rodriguez. She's helping us out with some extra cleaning today." Maya looked up to introduce herself politely, and the words died in her throat. Standing in the hallway was a man about her age with dark hair, sharp features, and the kind of confident posture that comes with success. But what made her blood freeze was his eyes. She knew those eyes. She had looked into them across library tables and coffee shop booths for months during her senior year of college. "Adrian Chen?" she whispered, using the name she remembered from 7 years ago. The man's face went completely white. His phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the hardwood floor. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, and Maya could practically feel the air in the hallway getting thicker. "Maya?" he said, his voice barely audible. "Maya Rodriguez?" Helen looked back and forth between them, confusion written all over her face. "Do you two know each other?" Maya's mind was racing. Adrian Chen had been her economics study partner during senior year. The quiet, serious scholarship student who always sat in the front row and asked thoughtful questions. He had been brilliant but shy, working part-time jobs to pay for school while building some kind of startup in his spare time. She remembered him being sweet in a nervous kind of way, always grateful when she helped him with his business ethics homework. But this couldn't be the same person. This man was wearing a suit that probably cost more than her family's rent. He owned a mansion. Helen had said his last name was Blackwood, not Chen. Maya started, then stopped. She felt dizzy suddenly, like the floor was tilting under her feet. Here she was, desperate and asking for work. And the man who might give it to her was someone who had known her when she had dreams and plans and a future that seemed bright. Adrian was staring at her like he was seeing a ghost. His face had gone from white to red, and he seemed to be struggling to find words. "You changed your name," Maya said finally, because someone had to say something. "Business reasons," he said quietly. Maya, what are you doing here?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. How could she explain that the girl who used to tutor him in ethics, who graduated summa cum laude, who had big plans for a marketing career, was now cleaning houses for food? Helen cleared her throat. "Maybe you two would like to talk somewhere private. I can finish the cleaning upstairs." Adrian nodded without taking his eyes off Maya. "Yes. Maya, could we talk in my office?" Maya wanted to run. Every instinct told her to grab her things and leave before this got more humiliating. But she thought about Danny in the hospital, about her mother working double shifts, about the $3 in her pocket. She needed this job even if it meant facing someone from her past. "Okay," she said softly. "We can talk." Adrian's office was nothing like Maya had expected. She had imagined something cold and corporate, all glass and metal like the offices she'd seen in movies. Instead, it felt warm and lived in. Bookshelves lined 2 walls filled with everything from business textbooks to science fiction novels. A large wooden desk sat near tall windows that looked out over the gardens, and comfortable chairs were arranged around a small coffee table. But Maya barely noticed the decor. She was too busy trying to process the fact that Adrian Chen, her study partner from college, was now Adrian Blackwood, millionaire tech executive. Her mind kept jumping between memories of the shy, hardworking student she'd known and the confident man standing before her now. "Please, sit down," Adrian said, gesturing toward one of the chairs. His voice was different than she remembered, deeper, more assured, but there was still something familiar in the way he spoke carefully, like he was choosing each word. Maya perched on the edge of a chair, her back straight and her hands folded in her lap. She felt like she was in a job interview, which in a way she supposed she was. Adrian sat across from her, but he kept shifting in his seat like he couldn't get comfortable. "I can't believe it's really you," he said finally. "When I heard your voice in the hallway, I thought I was imagining things." "I know the feeling," Maya replied. "When Mrs. Patterson said Mr. Blackwood, I never thought—" "I mean, you changed your name." Adrian nodded, running a hand through his hair. It was a gesture Maya remembered from college, something he did when he was nervous or thinking hard about a problem. "I started going by my mother's maiden name when the company took off," he explained. Blackwood sounded more, I don't know, more American for business purposes, more trustworthy to investors. He paused, looking uncomfortable. "It sounds stupid now, but back then I thought it mattered." "It doesn't sound stupid," Maya said softly. "I understand wanting to reinvent yourself." They sat in silence for a moment, both lost in their own thoughts. Maya remembered those late nights in the library when Adrian would share his dreams about starting his own company. He'd had this way of talking about technology like it could solve everything, make the world better. She'd found his passion inspiring, even if she didn't always understand the technical details. "Maya," Adrian said suddenly, "what happened to you? The last time I saw you, you were graduating with honors. You had that job offer from the marketing firm in Chicago. Everyone said you were going to do amazing things." Maya felt her cheeks burn with shame. She stared down at her hands, wishing she could disappear into the expensive furniture. "Things didn't work out the way I planned," she said quietly. "But how did you end up—" Adrian gestured vaguely, clearly trying to be polite about her situation. "Asking to clean your house for food?" Maya finished. "It's a long story. I have time," Adrian said gently. "If you want to tell it." Maya looked up at him then, really looked at him for the first time since they'd recognized each other. His face had matured, lost some of the softness she remembered, but his eyes were the same. Kind and intelligent, with that intensity that used to make her forget what she was saying when he focused on her during their study sessions. "I took the job in Chicago," she began. "It was everything I thought I wanted. Good salary, prestigious company, room for advancement. But then Danny got sick. Danny, my little brother. He was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition when he was 16. The treatments were expensive, and my parents didn't have insurance that covered everything. I ended up sending most of my salary home to help with medical bills." Adrian listened without interrupting, his expression growing more concerned as she continued. "Then the company I worked for got bought out by a bigger firm. They laid off half the staff, including me. I tried to find another job, but the market was terrible. Every position had hundreds of applicants. I did freelance work for a while, but it barely paid anything. Eventually, I had to move back home to help take care of Danny." Maya's voice caught a little, and she took a deep breath before continuing. "My mom started working double shifts to make ends meet. I took whatever jobs I could find, retail, waitressing, cleaning offices at night. But it was never enough. Danny needed more treatment, and the bills just kept coming. We lost our house, had to move into a tiny apartment across town. And then Danny got worse, and the hospital bills—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "Maya, I'm so sorry," Adrian said quietly. "I had no idea you were going through all of that. How could you?" "We lost touch after graduation. I changed my phone number when I moved to Chicago, and then again when I came back home. I'm not even on social media anymore." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, like he was testing the words. "I tried to find you, after graduation." Maya looked up in surprise. "You did?" I wanted to tell you something before you left for Chicago, but you were so busy with graduation parties and packing. Every time I tried to talk to you alone, something came up." He paused, then continued. "I had feelings for you, Maya. More than just study partner feelings. I was going to ask if maybe we could try to stay in touch, see if there might be something between us." Maya's breath caught. She remembered those last few weeks of senior year. How Adrian had seemed like he wanted to tell her something important, but she'd been so focused on her future plans, so excited about starting her new life in Chicago, that she'd barely noticed. "Adrian, she started, but he held up a hand. "You don't need to say anything. I know you had your life planned out, and I was just the shy guy who helped you with economics homework. But when you left without saying goodbye, I realized I'd missed my chance to tell you how I felt." "I did say goodbye," Maya protested. "I remember saying goodbye to everyone at the graduation party." "You said goodbye to the group," Adrian said with a sad smile. "But we never got to talk alone." "Not really. The next day you were gone." Maya felt a pang of regret. She remembered that party, how distracted she'd been with last-minute packing and phone calls about her new apartment in Chicago. She'd been so focused on her future that she'd barely paid attention to the present. "I looked for you online after that," Adrian continued, "but you'd already moved and your old email bounced back. I even hired someone to try to track you down, but by then you'd moved again. Eventually I figured you'd probably moved on with your life and didn't want to be found. I never knew you were looking for me," Maya said softly. "If I had known, what would you have done?" Adrian asked. "Honestly?" Maya thought about it. 7 years ago, she'd been so determined to make it on her own, to prove she could succeed in the corporate world. Would she have been ready for a relationship with someone who was just starting his own company? Someone whose future was as uncertain as her own? "I don't know," she admitted. "I was pretty focused on my career back then." "Maybe too focused. And now?" Adrian asked quietly. Maya looked around his beautiful office at the evidence of everything he'd accomplished. Then she thought about her own life. The empty bank account, the desperate need for work, the shame of having to ask for help. "Now I'm just trying to survive," she said honestly. "I'm not the same person you knew in college, Adrian. That girl with the big dreams and the bright future? She's gone." Adrian leaned forward in his chair, his eyes intense. "I don't believe that. The Maya I knew was smart and determined and kind. She wouldn't have given up her dreams just because things got difficult." "You don't understand," Maya said, feeling tears threaten. "I've lost everything. My career, my savings, my dignity. I'm here asking you for work because I'm desperate. That's not the same person who used to tutor you in business ethics." "Maybe not," Adrian said softly. "But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe the person you are now is someone I'd like to get to know even better." Maya felt her heart skip when Adrian said he wanted to get to know her better. But then reality crashed back in. She was sitting in his office wearing yesterday's clothes, having just begged his housekeeper for work. Whatever feelings might have existed between them 7 years ago, this wasn't exactly the reunion she would have chosen. "Adrian, that's sweet of you to say, but we're in completely different places now," she said, gesturing around the elegant office. "You're successful, you own all this, and I'm—" She trailed off, not wanting to finish the sentence. "You're going through a tough time," Adrian said firmly. "That doesn't make you less than me, Maya. It just means life threw you some curves that it didn't throw at me." Maya shook her head. "It's not just about money. I've made so many mistakes. I trusted the wrong people, took jobs that didn't lead anywhere, put all my hopes in companies that didn't care about their employees. I used to think I was smart about business, but looking back, I was naive about everything." "You weren't naive," Adrian said. "You were optimistic. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because my optimism didn't help when I got laid off. It didn't help when Danny needed expensive treatments. It didn't help when we lost our house." Maya's voice was getting stronger, fueled by years of frustration. "Maybe if I'd been more realistic, more careful, my family wouldn't be in this mess." Adrian was quiet for a moment, studying her face. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "Can I tell you something? When my company started taking off, I hired a private investigator to find you, not because I was obsessed or anything creepy like that, but because I wanted to share my success with someone who had believed in me when I was nobody. You were always encouraging about my business ideas, even when they sounded crazy." Maya remembered those conversations, Adrian used to talk about creating software that would make small businesses run more efficiently. At the time, it had seemed like such a long shot, but she'd always listened and asked questions because his passion was infectious. The investigator found out you'd moved from Chicago back to your hometown. He also found out why. Adrian paused. Maya, when I learned about your brother's illness and what you'd sacrificed to help your family, I didn't think you were naive. I thought you were the strongest person I'd ever known. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. Then why didn't you contact me? If you knew I was struggling, because I was a coward, Adrian said simply. I convinced myself that reaching out would be selfish, that you'd think I was showing off my success or trying to play hero. And honestly, part of me was afraid you'd reject me again. I never rejected you, Maya said softly. I just didn't know how you felt. I know that now. But back then it felt like rejection. When you left for Chicago without even a real goodbye, I threw myself into work. Every late night, every difficult decision, every risk I took. Part of it was trying to prove I was worthy of someone like you. Maya stared at him. Adrian, you didn't need to prove anything. You were already worth knowing. You were kind and smart and hardworking. Those things don't change just because you didn't have money. Maybe. But success has a way of making you forget what really matters. I spent so many years focused on building my company that I forgot why I wanted to build it in the first place. Adrian stood up and walked to the window. Do you know what I realized when I saw you today? What? That all the money and success in the world doesn't mean anything if you don't have people you care about to share it with. I've been living in this big house working 16-hour days, and for what? To prove something to someone who disappeared from my life years ago? Maya felt a flutter of something that might have been hope. So what are you saying? Adrian turned back to face her. I'm saying that maybe we both got so focused on where we thought we should be that we forgot to appreciate where we were. You had dreams about your career, and I had dreams about my company. But maybe we should have been dreaming about other things too. Like what? Like the kind of life we wanted to build? The kind of people we wanted in it? The kind of impact we wanted to make beyond just professional success? Maya stood up and joined him at the window. The rain had stopped and sunlight was starting to break through the clouds, making the wet garden sparkle. It's funny, she said. When I was cleaning those guest rooms this morning, I kept thinking about how everything here is so perfect and beautiful. But it also feels kind of empty, like it's all for show. That's because it is, Adrian admitted. I bought this place because I thought it was what successful people were supposed to have. Big house, expensive furniture, perfect landscaping, but I hardly use most of it. I eat dinner alone most nights, and I can't remember the last time I had friends over. They stood in comfortable silence for a few moments, both lost in thought. Maya was starting to see that Adrian's success might not be as perfect as it appeared from the outside. Adrian, she said finally, I appreciate you sharing all this with me, but I still need to figure out how to take care of my family. Whatever happened between us in college, whatever might happen between us now, I can't forget that my little brother needs medical care, and my mom is working herself to death. I know, Adrian said, and I want to help with that. But not as charity. I have a business proposition for you. Maya turned to look at him. What kind of business proposition? My company has grown really fast over the past few years. Maybe too fast. We've been so focused on the technical side that we've neglected some important things. Things like corporate social responsibility, community outreach, making sure we're actually helping people and not just making money. Okay, Maya said slowly. What does that have to do with me? You have a marketing background, right? And you understand what it's like to struggle, to worry about making ends meet. You know what real people need, not just what wealthy executives think they need. Maya nodded, curious about where this was going. I want to hire you to help me rebuild our company's approach to social responsibility, not just writing checks to charities, but actually making a difference in people's lives. You could help us create programs that matter, partnerships that work, initiatives that actually help families like yours. Maya felt her pulse quicken. That sounds like a real job. It is a real job. Full-time, good salary, benefits that would cover your brother's medical care, and it's work that would actually matter, not just pushing products that people don't need. Adrian, I don't know what to say. That sounds too good to be true. It's not too good. It's just right. You have the skills I need, and I have the resources you need. We could help each other. Maya felt torn between excitement and suspicion. Are you offering me this job because you think I'm qualified or because you feel sorry for me? Adrian looked her straight in the eye. Both, he said honestly. I do feel bad about what you've been through. But more than that, I think you're exactly what my company needs. Someone who understands that business success should mean more than just making rich people richer. And us? Maya asked quietly. What happens with whatever this is between us? I don't know, Adrian said. Maybe we take it slow. Maybe we figure out who we are now before we try to figure out who we might be together. But I'd like the chance to find out. Wouldn't you? Maya looked out at the gardens again, thinking about her empty bank account, her mother's exhausted face, Danny's medical bills. Then she thought about the shy, ambitious boy she'd known in college and the successful, lonely man he'd become. Yes, she said softly. I think I'd like that chance too. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of a conference room full of Adrian's senior executives, presenting her quarterly report on the company's new community outreach programs. She wore a professional navy blue dress that she'd bought with her first paycheck, and her hair was styled in a neat bun that made her feel confident and capable. The after-school computer program we launched has already served over 200 kids in underserved neighborhoods, Maya explained, clicking to the next slide of her presentation. More importantly, we're seeing real results. Test scores are up, attendance is improving, and parents are telling us their children are excited about learning again. Around the table, executives nodded approvingly as they reviewed the numbers on their tablets. Maya had learned that these people respected data above all else, so she'd made sure every program could show measurable impact. The Small Business Mentorship Initiative is also exceeding our expectations, she continued. We've paired 50 local entrepreneurs with our employees, and 12 of those businesses have already expanded enough to hire additional staff. Adrian sat at the head of the table, listening with the same focused attention Maya remembered from their college study sessions. But now, instead of struggling with business ethics homework, he was watching her command a room full of people who earned more in a year than her family had seen in a decade. When Maya finished her presentation, the room erupted in genuine applause. The CFO, a stern woman named Carol who rarely praised anyone, actually smiled. Outstanding work, Maya, Carol said. These programs are not only helping the community, they're generating positive media coverage that's improved our brand image significantly. After the meeting ended and the executives filed out, Adrian lingered behind. Maya was packing up her materials when she felt his presence beside her. Nice job in there, he said. You handled Peterson's questions about budget allocation perfectly. Thanks. I've been practicing those numbers in my head for days. Maya smiled. I still can't believe people actually listen to me in these meetings. Why wouldn't they? You know what you're talking about and you're passionate about the work. That combination is hard to argue with. Maya finished packing her laptop and turned to face him. Over the past few months, they had maintained a careful professional relationship during work hours. But after 5 o'clock, they'd been slowly rediscovering each other as people, not just as boss and employee. Are we still on for dinner tonight? Adrian asked. Actually, I was hoping we could do something different, Maya said. Would you like to come meet my family? My mom's making her famous enchiladas, and Danny's been asking when he gets to meet my new boss. Adrian's face lit up. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. Besides, it's time you saw where all this work is really making a difference. That evening, Adrian followed Maya's directions to a modest apartment complex across town. It was a far cry from his mansion, but the building was clean and well-maintained with small gardens outside each unit. Maya had told him that her family had been able to move here after she started her new job, trading up from the cramped place they'd shared before. Maya's mother, Rosa, greeted them at the door with the kind of warm smile that immediately made Adrian feel welcome. She was a small woman with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes, wearing an apron that smelled like cumin and cilantro. You must be Adrian, Rosa said, giving him a firm handshake. Maya has told us so much about you. Come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready. The apartment was small but cozy, decorated with family photos and colorful Mexican textiles. Adrian could hear the sounds of a television from another room where a teenage boy's voice called out, Is that Maya's boss? Maya, bring him in here. Maya laughed and led Adrian to the living room, where a thin boy with Maya's dark eyes was sitting on the couch with a laptop balanced on his knees. Despite his pale complexion and the medical alert bracelet on his wrist, Danny's smile was bright and mischievous. So you're the guy who gave my sister a real job, Danny said, grinning. She's been way less grumpy since she started working for you. Danny. Maya protested, but she was laughing. It's true, Rosa called from the kitchen. Before this job, Maya was so stressed all the time. Now she comes home with stories about the programs she's building, the people she's helping. She has hope again. Adrian felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the spicy smell coming from the kitchen. Seeing Maya with her family, hearing how the job had changed not just her financial situation but her whole outlook, made him realize how right his instincts had been. Over dinner, Adrian listened to Danny talk excitedly about his improved health, his return to school, and his plans to study computer programming. Rosa shared updates about her job at the hospital, how she'd been able to cut back to normal hours now that Maya was contributing to household expenses. The best part, Rosa said, passing Adrian a second helping of enchiladas, is that Maya is doing work that matters to her. For years, she took whatever job she could find just to pay bills. But now she talks about her projects like they're changing the world. They are changing the world, Adrian said, looking at Maya, one program at a time. Later, after dinner was finished and the dishes were cleared, Maya walked Adrian to his car. The evening air was cool and comfortable, and they moved slowly, neither wanting the night to end. Thank you for inviting me, Adrian said. Your family is wonderful. They liked you too. Danny was impressed that you knew about the latest video games, and my mom thinks you're too skinny. She's already planning to send you home with leftovers next time. Next time? Adrian asked, smiling. Well, assuming there is a next time. Assuming this thing between us keeps working. They had reached Adrian's car, but neither made a move toward the door. Maya leaned against the hood, looking up at the stars that were visible despite the city lights. Maya, Adrian said softly, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? Really happy. Not just grateful for the job, but actually happy with how things are going. Maya considered the question seriously. 3 months ago, she had been desperate, hungry, and ashamed. Tonight, she'd sat around a dinner table with her family, talking about the future instead of just worrying about making it through another day. Yes, she said finally. I'm happy, not just because of the job, though that changed everything, but because I feel like myself again. Like the person I was meant to be. Who were you meant to be? Someone who helps people. Someone who uses her skills to make things better, not just to make money. Someone who doesn't have to choose between taking care of her family and following her dreams. Adrian stepped closer and Maya felt her heart speed up. And us? He asked. Are you happy with how we're figuring this out? We're taking it slow, Maya said. Learning who we are now before we decide who we might be together. And what have you learned about who I am now? Maya smiled. I've learned that success didn't change the things about you that mattered. You're still kind. You still listen more than you talk. You still want to solve problems and help people. You just have better resources to do it now. What else? I've learned that you're lonely. That all this success doesn't mean much if you don't have people to share it with. And I've learned, Adrian said, reaching for her hand, that the smartest business decision I ever made was hiring you. Not just because you're good at the job, but because you reminded me why the job matters. Maya squeezed his hand. So where do we go from here? Forward, Adrian said simply. Together, if you want to. Maya looked back at the apartment building where her family was probably cleaning up the kitchen and settling in for the evening. Then she looked at Adrian, this man who had somehow found his way back into her life exactly when she needed him most. Yes, she said. I think I'd like to go forward together. As Adrian drove away that night, Maya stood in the parking lot for a few more minutes, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. 6 months ago, she had been standing at his gate in the rain, asking for work in exchange for food. Tonight, she was building programs that helped thousands of people. Her family was secure, and she was falling in love with someone who valued her mind as much as her heart. Sometimes, Maya thought as she headed back inside, the best things in life come disguised as the worst things. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find everything you actually needed.